Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here, and as you can see, we're running it back. A little bit of Thin Man back up in the Smeese in form of their Sci-Fi Hamster wheel. We just did a review of Thin Man's, it's called Super Freak. It's like a low ABV hazy, and I was at a different spot, and lo and behold, I saw this, and I was like, okay, India Pale, 6.6%, kind of sweet, spotty-ish for me when it comes to IPAs. It's like almost exactly a month old, and I figured, why not? It's a little hamster with an eye patch on it. It's from something I can't remember what it is. I dig me some Thin Man. I think that's all that's written on here. I don't think you're really getting much. It is a July 10th, 2023 can-on date. Done and done. I'm not the biggest fan of Thin Man's artwork, but I'm not going to say I hate him. I know Thin Man beer when I see it. So that's probably the biggest kind of kudos I can give to them is that, you know, when their art design is unique to them. You know, there's all these kind of geometric patterns and different kind of beers, and you're like, wait, is that from, wait, I think, no, pretty stink stuff, so it works in that sense. Almost has like a South Parky kind of vibe to it. Anyway, as far as the beer goes, it's dark, man. It is quite dark. It's got a subtle haze to it, but it has a darker than what you'd expect typically from an IPA. Now, that doesn't mean it's oxidized, but in today's kind of hazy beer world, when it's that dark, you start to think a little bit. So it's got this rich kind of deeper golden hue than you typically get, that straw color, just barely off-white kind of head to it. So it looks like part of a hazy. It looks like an old school hazy. Let's put it that way. Let's get a nose. Yeah, we still might be walking down a little bit of an oxidated lane here, because you do get a big kind of stone fruitiness, a bit of citrus in there, a little bit of grapefruit, but there's almost like a spiciness to it that you don't typically get on hazies. Almost rye IPA-esque, and then the way sweetness typically comes off, at least the perception of sweetness on a nose for me, when something tends to lean into oxidated, an oxidated state, is almost like a little bit more kind of like gummy candy, and that's kind of how it's going here. Not an overtly negative nose. It comes off like a sort of confectionery gummy candy sweet. Peach rings all the way, with this like little bit of spiciness to it. Let's just dive in, see what's what. Cheers, y'all. That's not bad by any stretch. I think it actually does have a touch of oxidation going on, but it's at that point where it's starting to show through more on visual than in taste, starting to touch aromatics, but at the same time, it's still a very tasty and drinkable beer. Mouthfeel's a little bit kind of thinned out. That's another kind of indicator of a touch of oxidation. There's a little bit of spiciness, a little bit of dryness that's almost like wet paper, as opposed to a yeast kind of dryness. I attribute that to a bit of oxidation too, but the hops are still here. It's still very, very vibrant. It definitely leans in that peach, stone fruity, peach ringy kind of category. Like I said, that spiciness kind of bounces back and forth between bittering and spiciness for me. And then that's pretty much it. Done and done. It's sweet for... It's not overly sweet. It's sweet, appropriate level sweet. It's just... It just drinks like it's supposed to be something a little bit different. Maybe I'm just hoping, maybe I'm just dreaming, maybe this is supposed to be something along these lines. It doesn't say anything about what it wants to be or what it should be. Man, it's a horrible barcode. As someone who did barcode compliance, there's like almost no gaps in that top part of that barcode, which means I'm surprised this thing actually scans. Anyway, well, that was probably the nerdiest thing I've ever done on my channel. But it's okay, it's fine. I think it's seen better days, and I would love to try this, basically. Fresh. I think this beer, fresh, would probably be, or less oxidated, is probably something quite a bit different than what it sits like here. That's my guess. This is where y'all come in, because at this point, there's really not much else to say. Not an overtly negative IPA, comes off, like I said, a little bit kind of old schooler, because that oxidation on these new school hazies tend to lean into a little bit maltier vibe when it comes to the way the beer kind of shows up. But again, like this is visually more oxidated than is on the nose, and then subsequently in the taste, but it comes off a little bit more old school. Did they mean it that way? I don't know. That's where y'all come in. You have to tell me. What do you think about the beer? So we'll run through the thing. one of the better IPAs I've had. Is like, no, not really. Value availability, I want to say I paid like 13, $14 for it. Their price points are typically quite good. And leave you with, if you like, well, you like this. I like old school spicy IPAs. You don't mind a little oxidation. Thin Man. Have you been to the brewery? Have you had their beers? Have you had this beer specifically? That's where this conversation really kind of ties in, because I want to know what your experience is specifically with this beer. Did it come off this way? Did the coloration come off this way? Did it drink much the same that mine did? Now, I do have 4 cans of this, so before I post this review, I will crack another can to make sure it just wasn't a singular can issue. If you see this review go up, and I'm saying these things, and it was kind of consistent across the board. So, like I said, not a negative beer by any stretch. Well, you can tell it's kind of eking towards something that I don't think it's supposed to be, and I'm curious if that's the case. So, all that fun stuff, let's talk about it down there. So there we go. Review in the books. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a little bit of Thin Man right now. We'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.